Welcome to Dasso and Hunt. I'm Jean-Pierre Ruth for Information Week, and in this episode, we'll be taking a look at the way things kind of balance out with incumbent financial institutions, their use and exploration of making use of AI in-house, and what that means, if anything, for startups who are nimbler and faster. What they might offer and how that relationship then works. Are incumbents potentially looking at that they find more efficient ways by making use of leveraging AI or the potential of AI? Do they still have needs that startups can offer them with making their agile approaches to leveraging technology available to them as potential partnerships or if not acquisitions further down the road? So though I've got some experience covering the fintech and startup scene over time, I do, as always, appreciate having some experts who've got, some real thoughts, that are go beyond my, limited expertise on things. So for this episode, we are joined by Angela Friend, Vice President of Data Science and AI with DailyPay, Adnan Masood, Chief AI Architect with UST, and John Lin, investor with F Prime Capital. All of you, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you for
us.
having us.
Great. So again, looking at the spread of AI as different incumbent financial institutions start to explore, start to dip their toes in, or where they can, where they are able to, really start to embrace it. Does this change the dynamics of how they look at fintech startups that might, historically, been the ones to kind of like introduce the newer ideas that larger enterprises, as a whole, and particularly incumbents in the financial space, might look to say, hey, they've explored things that we might want to try, to take a look at. But John, I'm hoping you speak to this question of will in-house AI deployments among financial institutions will that reduce demand for startup fintech innovations?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the category. I think there's a set of types of advantages that incumbents have and a set that startups have. So when you look at incumbents, they have a really large customer base, which they have distribution for. They have a reputation within the industry. They probably have unique sets of data that only they have because of their customers or because of their partners. They can leverage really large partnerships as well. And they also just have a full suite of products to deploy against. When you look at startups, there's really small, nimble teams. There's usually a lack of legacy infrastructure, which means you can move a lot faster. You usually don't have to comply with as many security or regulations. A lot of times having the founder or having someone directly lead the sale leads to a better voice of the customer or understanding the customer better. And you also have the ability to perhaps counter position or do something that an incumbent might not do because it might hurt their existing business. So when we think about the possible conditions for startups to break in, it's usually in areas where you don't have to have a large set of data. Luckily, because of these awesome LLMs, a lot of times you only need a little bit of additional training data to train something. And the other area that we see a lot of new entrants from the startup field is where there's very generative AI specific workflows. So it's not augmenting an existing workflow where an incumbent already has a lot of advantages and already has a lot of customers, but is creating a net new workflow. So those are the areas that we're the most excited about here at F Prime.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for that. Angela, looking at, efficiencies, as efficiencies for AI continue to be touted, in fintech and other potential places, do incumbent financial institutions really still have a need for the small, nimble startups to kind of, catalyze innovation?
I actually think they do. I think the relationships might change a little bit. Instead of being competitive, it might be actually more complementary or collaborative. There are, the incumbents have established processes, but there are new market opportunities. There are products and features that don't exist yet. And as fintech startups sort of start exploring that space and serving customers in new ways, leveraging generative AI is only one of the ways that we can actually do that. Then I think that the incumbents are really going to want to actually partner with these fintechs to really start exploring these new market spaces. For example, DailyPay, we are really starting to expand our consumer financial services. We're starting to establish a number of different products and features to support hourly employees in their daily jobs. And these are not things that have been typically targeted by some of the large incumbents. So I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of excitement around collaboration and partnerships.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much for that. Adnan, from your perspective, what are some common pain points that are seen, or at least, typically, spoken about for financial institutions when it comes to that they want to solve by use of technology, be it AI or other technology, and how might startups kind of like speak to those pain points in ways that large incumbents might not be able to, or are not readily able to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think building upon the things that Angela and John has just talked about, the common thread across these categories of what AI can do for fintech is enhancing efficiency, reducing the operational cost, and we see improvement of customer experiences. Like these are some, I guess, the key use cases per se. And I come from a technology background. I'm a machine learning PhD, but I was a chief architect for a financial institution, which is the largest prepaid debit card provider. And I've seen it firsthand, the pain points and how startups can be nimble and agile. Large financial institutions and companies, we usually grapple with compliance, customer experience, scaling the solutions. And startups, like I think John alluded to earlier, they are free from the weight of these legacy systems. Like they can innovate more rapidly. There's an example of, I think, one of your invested company, Credit Kudos, which utilized the open banking API to create this credit worthiness assessment. Now, if you try to do that in-house, it might actually be much longer, much expensive. At the time to build it, and building the entire thing, compliance and customer experience and scalability around it might actually be difficult. So in a nutshell, what happens is startups can speak to these pain points by offering the specialized tech-driven solutions, which incumbents, it will take them too long to develop internally. I hope that makes sense.
Definitely does. And thank you very much for that. And thank you all for your individual input. And then actually that last question actually really does lead into the question for all of you. Let's talk about, are there ways that fintech startups, are there ways for them to kind of really take a leading role on AI innovation in the financial scene? And it could be even just going beyond just speaking to, responding to what financial, the incumbent financial institutions need. Are there things that fintech startups can really lead a charge on with AI that the entire scope of the financial scene can be like, wow, okay, this could be something, for us to really learn from?
I'd like to answer that. So for us specifically, one of the spaces that we're moving into is the space in between HR tech and fintech. And their HR departments are having to have more and more of the financial components under their umbrella. And there's a lot of opportunity for fintech to bridge those two industries in a way that hasn't done before, leveraging AI. And it moves beyond internal, process optimizations or even customer personalization. We're talking brand new products and new ways of using data.
Gotcha.
So I can add to that as fintech startups are leading innovation, right? It's not they could, but they are leading innovations. Like the startups are more adaptable. They can target niche markets quickly, really make them innovators. And some of the areas are, which we alluded to earlier, is generative AI, LLM, explainability of the models, but also things around things which are very unknown and not really the bailiwick for large financial institutions. So for instance, compliance in an AI market, how would you achieve ethical AI or auditability and transparency of these models? And that's something which a startup is much more capable and well positioned to experiment with these cutting edge technologies and then bring that experience and expertise as part of their package. So I think that's where they really fit well to be able to nimbly experiment and then provide those feedback back to the large enterprises.
Yeah, I agree. Compliance is definitely a space of opportunity and ethical AI usage, and also regulatory space, especially as companies become more global. Being able to manage all of the regulatory components dynamically in a way that is meeting users where they are is definitely an area of opportunity. I agree.
Gotcha. Great. Awesome. Thank you for that. We're definitely going to dive more into the regulatory aspects of that. And John, do you have any additional input on that particular question, or you want me to pop over to the next thing?
Oh, let's move on to the next one. I think they gave great.
Gotcha. Great. All right. So let's talk about how much of a role the AI can really have overall in the overall financial scene. We've already kind of really started talking about that. Is there kind of like a predilection for it to be, deployed as something to be more consumer-facing operations, or is it, are there, more opportunities that AI could, bring efficiencies with more internal kind of functions? Not to say that it has to be either or, but I just want to try to get a sense of, where it seems to be that AI, at least for the financial sector, seems to kind of like, bring the most or more to the table.
Yeah, maybe I can take this one. So we generally think about it across the continuum. So there's, as you mentioned, customer and outreach and service-centric things. We think about reporting and analytics, and then we think about back office functions. So within kind of the more front-facing sector, we see a lot of opportunities in the short run for things like automated support. We also see new ways to engage customers and do marketing and contact your customers as well. So those are really exciting areas that we think AI will have an impact on financial institutions. On the reporting and analytics side, we see a lot of ways for AI to help give you additional customer insights. And that could be thinking about which customers to target. It could be creating models for things like lending or for risk. And it could also be to help you reconcile specific accounts. And then within the core automation workflow, we see a lot of examples where AI can help you with things such as research or ingesting documents and scheduling, as well as a bunch of other internal workflow functions. So kind of across the spectrum, we see AI being used depending on which team it is.
I would add fraud detection to that space as well, protecting users, not just in the ethical AI space, but actually helping users maintain their accounts safely and move money safely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are great points. And I would say this spans the entire continuum, like John said, and Angela added that they're both consumer facing and internal function. And I think after the advent of generative AI, there has been this concept behind the scenes that Gen AI is going to solve that entire spectrum of things. And people traditionally machine learning techniques and AI techniques, which are used for process automation, fraud detection, risk management, compliance, those are kind of like taking a backseat, which is not the right way to frame the problems. Like the time series analysis, outlier analysis, anomaly detection, clustering, these all techniques stay intact. Just because we have LLMs doesn't take away the importance of these traditional systems, which are important. So both for for front end, you have chatbots, personalized recommendation, process automation, and that's great for front end perspective. But for back office, we still have the equally important aspects of process automation, fraud detection, risk management, automated compliance, etc. So those components have to be there. And I'm seeing AI being applied across the spectrum very consistently.
To listen to the entire conversation, look for the Das 100 podcast on Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon Music, and other popular podcast platforms.